everyone.
Oh, here we are, live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Unlimited Network that we do every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And today is Saturday, September 24 already. And here we are, ready to release to ourselves to be who we truly are, capital letters, okay? And I was just writing a post on Facebook right now, realizing this, that how simple and how much I personally resist and keep catching myself, running the show here. But the simplicity of letting go who we are not, every thought, every sensation that you have that is constrictive or discomfort or whatever, allow yourself to, open the space for it in a gentle, conscious way or loving way, offer space, permission, allow that to be liberated. Here I am sometimes, grasping it on the way and running, and oh my gosh. So I love that we can get here together every Saturday for an hour to support ourselves, to go in this direction, instead of to allow ourselves to deepen in the practice, the practice of release. That is what we are working with our abundance book, the abundance book here with Lawrence Crane, and to support us as an entrepreneurs. I see entrepreneurs, the people that we have the courage to dream big, and yes, and means, and to be authentic and to compensate in our shadows and our limitations. So I love to have this opportunity. We are studying right now, practicing, experiencing a very powerful chapter that is all about how the pride in human beings, like when you think, it's really about thinking that you are more, or maybe you are on the other side about poor me, or I'm less than, or whatever. But this sensation of pride, that to really defend yourself, that you have some value, instead of coming from a place where that is so natural and you don't even have to argue it or think about it, because it's your nature, it's our nature, okay? So we went through several, let's say, expressions of that pride. And last week, besides the pride, but last week we were talking guilt. And today we have, my gosh, rejection, jealousy, being better than others, insecurity. So we are going to have a journey, where we can really and be honest with ourselves, because when you check that, oh, that's something that I do, first you learn how to be less personal, because it's really not so you, it's more the collective, all consciousness waking up through, and the ability that we are getting here to simply release it, let it go. We don't have to fix it, we don't have to change it, So let's see if we can go through these powerful habits that we have here that really help us to suffer in some way, and see what it means. How do we sense, about separation, rejecting things, jealousy, etc. So if you are ready, Doc Fran, I'm very ready myself, because catching myself being trapped on something here. So I love to have this, to open the window and see what's going on, really. So thank you. Welcome, everyone. And here we are.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much. It's lovely to see everyone this morning. Yeah, we had a very powerful session last week, and it was really interesting. I reflected on it all week long this week in terms of some of the insights and realizations that the panel created in me. So I appreciate that. And we ended off last week with guilt. And I think that the takeaway lesson that we had from that was that guilt is an emotion or a feeling that you have that locks you usually in the past. And it's a completely useless emotion, because it doesn't allow you to have any progress or make any decisions or take any action in the present, because you're literally stuck in your mind in your past. So let's move on now. The next part of this is looking at separation. So let's see what Lawrence has to say about that. Separation. All right, let's take a look at separation. Who or what do you want to be separate from? Whatever answer you've got, could you put your head down and allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through? Notice there's a clutching going on, a resistance. Just allow it to pass through, and more, and even more. Who or what do you want to be separate from? Think of some feeling you want to be separate from. Put your head down. Notice there's a resistance there, and just allow it to pass through, and more, and more. Think of something else you want to be separate from. An outrageous person, an annoying person. Put your head down and notice that there's judging going on, and it's uncomfortable. Allow the energy to come up and pass through. Allow that energy to come up and just allow it to pass through, and more, and even more. Do you want to be separate from your feelings? Keep releasing on things you want to be separate from until you're clear on it before moving on. Rejecting. Now think of somebody you're rejecting. Could you let go of rejecting?
Wait.
Go ahead.
One second, Dr. Yes, because I think that this is so important and subtle, and to really take the time, to check, like, for example, to me, the first sensation that I had here was, I want to be separated, meaning, I don't know about rejection after, but I want to be separated from a sense of scarcity. And that came up super quick. To take the time to open the window and to let that go. And it's funny because I'm touching that space. It's so funny. I'm inclusive in seeing the separation, it's like, it's such a dream here, like illusion or whatever it is that I'm feeling, or discovering, in the sense of how unreal this can be, and how stuck I am on that level, that I think I can get away from something that feels discomfort, So I just wanted to highlight that, like, gosh, every feeling, everything that doesn't feel comfortable, the first sense that is that I want to separate myself from it, It's very powerful to bring awareness to that, and to see that, yes, of course, I open the window very often, but the first kick in was separation. It's so funny. because I sit a lot and I check in and I release, but unconsciously my first thing is to separate, so I wanted to say that just to support us, to bring light to this. Is like, wow.
Yeah, it's exciting when you get when you get an insight like that, so thank you for sharing it. Go ahead, Arnie.
Yeah, that in alignment with what Monica is saying here, and Lawrence, is the attraction to being separated from, this thing. I don't like it, and it's a sensation first, and then what Lawrence says, well, just accept the sensation, and the problem is gone. Problem is not the sensation. Because once we allow the sensation, then it's not a problem. So the problem is what label we have attached to that sensation. For example, sensation of fear or excitement. That sensation in a certain circumstance, and we call it fear, we want to separate from it. But if we call that same sensation, jumping off the cliff into a water bay, or wonderful that the kids are jumping 20, 30 feet into the abyss, and they are just enjoying it, and it's really, really exciting. If I do the same thing, I call it fear, and I don't want to do it. So the label on it's not the sensation that's the problem. It's the label on the sensation. And if we label it as, label comes from our experience with that we had with that sensation. And if we label it that I don't like it, it's a bad one, it's a fear, it's disgusting or whatever, then every time we have it, we want to be separated from it. We don't want to have it. On some level, allowing that feeling, not on some level. Once we allow that feeling, according to Lawrence here, which I agree with, once we allow it, then the old concept that I don't like it is gone. It becomes, hey, this is pretty cool. I love this feeling. I used to call it I don't like it, but now I like it, so bring it on more. It's excitement, it's aliveness. So that's my inspiration here.
Well, excellent. Yeah, what I'm wrestling with right this minute is if we accept the premise that we are immortal spiritual beings, that we are in fact the essence of God, can you really be separate from anything? And so, but what you two have both pointed up very clearly is that now we have an awareness of having a choice of being separate from unwanted feeling or unwanted emotion, which is purely a physical being phenomenon. Would you agree?
Yes, and to me it's like noticing inside that my consciousness, my true nature, love, I call it love because of the way I feel it, but includes separation. It's so funny, it's like when I stop it, because I felt it just as you were reading, like, gosh, that here we are. Okay. I can stop and I can open the window and allow it, give it permission or just feel it or whatever. That is oneness. It's interesting to see, like it's okay to accept separation of, when I accept separation, I am oneness. And like you said, Dr. there is nothing that I can be separated from because, I am one, I am all, So it's beautiful to see that it's not about separating from separation even, or rejecting rejection. I don't know what we're going to read now about rejection, but is for me is inclusive, in that sense, like, okay, stop and welcome the separation, welcome the tendency to separate, it's kind of an unconscious, well, it's becoming conscious now, but that experience, I can be one, no problem, as soon as I get quiet, something like that.
Excellent. Anybody else have a thought?
I've got some ideas. If you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Please indicate me if you don't hear me well, because my microphone didn't work earlier when we tested. I'm using another one now. And what I experienced is I did several times when I was meditating, and once a couple of years ago I had a difficult physical situation at hospital. I felt that I was not a body anymore. I was not able to feel anything about the body anymore. And I had a peaceful moment of being everything, just being everything. And I knew that I'm larger than what I see in the mirror. That's not me. I've got something very larger thing going on. But I wanted to continue to my physical experience. And for that, I felt like I really want to get angry to something. Just I want to find out something. I want to get angry about it. I want to feel jealousy. I want to feel resentment. I mean, I wanted to find out some equal feelings in order to feel all the sensations back to my physical bodily form, to continue to my experience. And I chose to see some things which I don't like with my consciousness. I chose it and tried to raise some anger, for example, inside of myself. I tried to just find a platform like DJ playing with music. I found it like a platform that I can choose thoughts, like putting music, choosing thoughts, and I can play with my feelings just to get sensation of feeling back to my bodily form. And well, I think for our physical experience here, we really need to have those separation feelings as well. We need anger, we need jealousy, we need resentment, all those separation feelings in order to experience this separate bodily form and call what we call life, what's it going through as an experience. But when it's too general, then it cannot go through some experiences. But we need to become conscious of it. It's the nice idea is to be observer of your thoughts, which music I put there, which one is playing, therefore which feeling is rising up. Just become an observer of it, not being dragged by it unconsciously, but being aware of it. Now I choose this thought, therefore I'm living this feeling, therefore I'm getting these experiences around me, becoming more effective, just using whatever negative thought, negative feeling, also use it as positive sensation that we can really choose, actually, becoming aware of it. Difficult to explain, sorry.
You did an excellent job of explaining it, and it was very exciting to hear that you could become consciously choosing the thoughts to be the observer of self in the physical universe. And again, back in when we studied Scientology, there is a phenomenon that they train you to do where it's called exteriorization. And it is an exercise to rehabilitate that spiritual ability to literally separate your awareness from your body. And you literally become a being looking down on your physical self from above and behind yourself. It's a very disconcerting sensation. If you've read any books on near-death experience or death and recovery in people, they often describe the sensation as Burl just did in a hospital where you become exterior to your physical self and literally watch the medical team working on you to maintain your life force. I'm really excited that as a panel, we came to understanding where I believe Lawrence wanted us to go with the concept of separation. It's very understated here, simply a paragraph. And yet the ability to allow oneself to separate the spiritual awareness from the physical body is a very powerful, high functioning spiritual ability. Does that make sense? Did I confuse
yes,
all?
No, absolutely. I want to add one thing there. You say in the hospital situation, but personally, without the hospital situation, so leaving the body, floating around, and that was really outside my body, and a death experience I could come back or not come back, but that was a very, very pleasurable experience. It was not, there was no emergency. I just or rather, nobody around me had a sense of emergency. So I had my own time to make my decision and make my choice. and was able to experience that. And it was a good experience. And then I decided to come back, and no big deal. So yeah, it's not only what we think it appears to be on the surface.
We're talking about very ethereal experiences here. So I'm sure some of our listeners today are going, you know, have these people completely lost their minds? So, but we also learned in our earlier training here that it's a really good thing to be out of your mind. So
don't try to figure it out, you know, like just allow. But I think the biggest point that I get from what we are talking here, and this is what I want to take like a minute after every topic here, is don't like from my perspective, I think it's much more empowering to become aware of the tendency that we have to separate from things, you know, and to open the window and allow that separation thing, whatever, because it's total illusion. But that's something that you discover, not something that you intellectually, you know, like you were saying, Beryl and Arne. I mean, it's something that you, at one point, you really discover. And I believe that through opening the window and really letting go of these things that I want to separate from, you know, it's kind of, you know, I am not one with that one. Well, sorry, you are, you know, open the window, allow it, and then you will see that, yes, you are all and nothing, you know, everything and nothing is my definition of who we truly are, you know. So I'm glad that we can make friends. It's like, let's stop judging the judgment, you know what I'm saying? Let's stop, you know, like separation is not a bad thing. It's our journey, you know, like I suppose all the other emotions that we were saying, anger, jealousy, we will see now, you know, but to get the time to check inside, do I separate from something? Yeah. Oh, let's see how much we reject now, Doc Fran. I think is the next quality here that we are going to explore.
That was excellent, Monica, because that is the essence of releasing, is allowing ourselves to separate from that unwanted energy. But it's so funny that you put it into a whole new intellectual viewpoint and actually label it as separating. And that has very deep rooted conflict for all of us because of our primal separation, and that is the awareness of separation from God himself. So anyway, that's another, that's the whole book in itself. So let's go forward then. Rejecting. All right, here's another a form. Again, can you see how these are all variations or different viewpoints of the same topic? If we're rejecting something, we are literally separating ourselves from it. Now, think of somebody you're rejecting. Could you let go of rejecting them and more and more? And maybe you're rejecting yourself, a habit or something you do that you don't like. Put your head down and allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through, and more and even more. Now think of somebody you're rejecting. Just allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through, and more and even more. And think of somebody that is rejecting you. Could you allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through, and more and more? Now think of somebody you're resisting, or something you're resisting. Maybe it's a feeling like apathy, grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, or even CAP. Now, CAP is, look on page 42, 43, and we see where CAP comes in, rather than just say it. It's the top three emotional states after pride: courageousness, acceptance, and peace. So, you know, and again, this points up something that's important to do. Never read past something that you don't understand, because you literally leave all of your attention units stuck on that. How many people wondered what CAP meant as I read that? I'm sure a lot of our listeners did, and maybe some of our panel did. So, you need to, it's basically called word clearing. You need to clear up any misunderstanding as it occurs. Otherwise, your cognitive process is arrested at that point, and you're literally leaving attention units stuck there, whether they're conscious or subconscious. So you just allow that energy to come up, put your head down and allow it to pass through, and more and more. And it's only because you're resisting that you feel a push and feel uncomfortable. So let go of resisting, and more and more. And think of somebody or something you're resisting. Could you be resisting abundance, as Monica mentioned, or having an easy life? Could you be resisting having lots of money? No, none of us ever do that. Or having a loving person in your life? None of us ever do that. Could you let go of resisting these things? And more, and even more, and even more. And again, anytime you wish, you can stop and do work on each of these subjects. I highly recommend it. And Burrell pointed out to us, and I'll just make one quick comment and then open it up for you, Monica. Burrell brought this sharply into focus, where she articulated exactly how she was consciously going through choosing the thoughts that she had. So you're never really separate from anything when you think about it. It's just a question of what have you selectively allowed your mind to focus on. Monica, go.
Okay. Well, I have a personal understanding this week of disapproval, of resisting. So a big thing that I'm resisting is disapproval. I hate disapproval. So create a lot of disapproval because I'm resisting it, right? So yesterday I was working on our new house, and I cleaned it in a way, and I was expecting disapproval from that. No matter what I did, there would be a disapproval. So what I to change it and say no, and I made a new vision in my mind, and where I would not be disapproved, where it would be good, and the outcome it's gonna be absolutely perfect, which was my intention to begin with. I did something, and then the expected disapproval never showed up. The circumstance was just left alone, and the outcome just became very beautiful. Actually able to, first time pretty much consciously, I was able to change that midway, where the disapproval would have. I actually found myself thinking about, oh, now this is going to happen. Oh shit, now this is going to happen. And I thought it probably 20, 30 times. And then I say, wait a minute, no, let's see if I can turn that around. And I turn it around, and the scenario that I built up didn't happen. So I'm kind of self for having. No, I'm grateful. I'm happy I was able to turn that around. I released the addiction to disapproval. I released resisting. I don't know if they heard you.
Yeah.
Wanting approval. I released wanting approval.
I think we just dropped you, Arnie. But we did get that. You released wanting approval, and congratulations, because as we've seen, that's one of the big three constant motivators in our life. So real progress is being made here, because how many of us never really understood that our motivations could break down as to being motivated by one of the big three wants? that everything can ultimately break down into one of those three major categories: safety, approval, and security, and I forget the third one now. See, I've kind of as-ised it, but neat thoughts this morning coming up. And the other thing that Arnie, as you were speaking, I started thinking about, we've already trained that worrying is like praying for something you don't want. So you were worrying that you were going to get disapproval, and sure enough, you got lots of disapproval until you reached the point where you finally taught yourself the lesson that your spiritual beingness was trying to punch through all the time, and saying, hey, I can let go of that. I really don't need approval. I feel a sense of movement forward on that, just your realization of it. At least some of us are making progress. All right, anybody else have a thought, or should I keep going? All right, we're into jealousy. All right, let's see what Lawrence has to say about this. So who or what brings up feelings of jealousy for you? Think of somebody you're jealous of, or something that you're jealous about. Just allow that energy to come up. Notice if you're clutching, if there's a resistance to it. Just allow that energy to pass through, and more and more. And think of somebody you're jealous of. See if there's a clutching, a resistance, and just allow that energy to pass through. And think of somebody you're in contest with. See if they're jealous of you, and whether you're rejecting them or not. Could you let go of rejecting them, and more and more? And could you just let go of trying to separate yourself from them, and more and even more? Very fascinating how he ties all of these little viewpoints and feelings and sensations in. Better than others, being better than others. Think of somebody you think, oh, I'm sorry. Now think of somebody you think you are better than. One person whom you think you're better than. Could you allow that person to be equal to you? Let go of clutching and just release it. Think of somebody you think you are better than. Could you allow that person to be equal to you? And now just let it go. And think of somebody else you think you're better than. One person you think you're better than. Could you allow that person to be equal to you? Let go of let go of clutching and release it. Think of somebody else you think you're better than. Could you allow that person to be equal to you, and just let it go? Now, you may want to take the time at this point and continue on with a number of people in your life and just let go of this stuff. I'm immediately going back. This paragraph brought me to an action that Nancy and I took when our children were about 6 and 3. And those of us that have children, I don't know if any of you ever had the sensation that, what the hell am I doing here? They don't come with a book of instructions. And so you worry about whether or not you're actually doing a good job as a parent. So Nancy and I reached that point in our life, and so we decided to take a parenting class. And the only group in Wilmington that offered a parenting class was the Jewish Community Center. So we signed ourselves up, not really even aware of the fact that we would be the only Gentiles in this entire group of Jewish people who were all sitting there struggling with whether or not they were being good parents. And the thing that struck me as so amazing in that, there was one very didactic, dictatorial individual. His name was Maury Lipschitz. You'll never forget Maury Lipschitz. He was a big power attorney in Wilmington, Delaware, and he loved to pontificate on things. So I remember thinking, as he's sitting there pontificating on a particular point about why he really had this parenting thing nailed down, and we just had to all understand his viewpoint and position on it, and we would all be instantly better parents. And after he finished this long-winded, soliloquy, this woman turned to him and said point blank, "You're full of shit, Maury." and I was like, as a Gentile, those are fighting words, and so I'm expecting a big rhubarb to go on here in this group. And he just rolled his eyes and shrugged his shoulders, and the next person started to talk. And it was so amazing to me that it really was an encapsulation of this, think of someone that you're better than, having some jealousy attached to it. And they didn't really, they simply allowed themselves to have a free flow of information and belief, really, or viewpoints, and not attach themselves to either being agreed with, or being disagreed with. It simply was discourse. So we did learn a lot besides being better parents. I think in that group setting, I actually learned how to be a better person through that experience. I don't know if I communicated that, but it was very real to me as I was thinking and going through this jealousy chapter. Anybody else have something to say? All right. Well, let's go. Being better than others. Now, think of somebody you think you are better than. I just did that, didn't I? Okay, that was the better than.
Yes, insecurity.
Yeah, all right, we're up to insecurity. Now, who do you think is better than you? Think of one person that you think is better than you. Can you allow yourself to be equal to them? Could you allow yourself to be equal to them? Notice if there's any clutching, just let it go. Now, who do you think is better than you? Think of one person that you think is better than you. Could you allow yourself to be equal to them? Notice if there's any clutching. Release on it and let it go. You may want to stop here and continue on with some other people before moving forward. So again, folks, these aren't just paragraphs in a book. These are calls to action. And it's incumbent on us. Thank you, Burl. Yeah, it always is weird when somebody just takes it and takes a simple idea in retrospect, but gets it first and just runs with it. Burl mentioned Mark Zuckerberg. And of course, here's a college kid that turned himself into a multi-billionaire with a simple idea. Interesting thoughts. Personality. Now let's take a look at our persona, our personality. A better name may be poisonality. If you're in pride, take one personality flaw that you have or personality trait that you have, then see if it's a wanting of approval, control, or safety. And could you let go of either wanting control, approval, or wanting safety and security? It might be that you're gentle at times. Could you see that as either wanting approval, control, or safety? And could you let that go? It could be that you're tough at times, even mean. You get the idea. Pick one personality trait that you have and see if it's a wanting of approval, control, or safety. And could you let go of either, what's this? I'm going to cry, Candace. How sweet thoughts. Virtual hugs to you. Okay. All right, I'm keeping one eye on the screen at all times here. So that was fast. Candace, I missed your post, so I didn't get to read that, but I'm sure it was insightful. Could you either let go of wanting, pick another personality trait you have and see if it's a wanting approval, control, or safety. And could you let go of either wanting approval, control, or safety? Pick one personality trait that you have and see if it's wanting of approval, control, or safety. And could you let go of either wanting approval, control, or safety? At this point, you might want to continue letting go of your personality traits, your persona, letting it go so you're not stuck in pride and you can move on and allow the flow of abundance to continue. Doing this work is very important in order to move into abundance. So go back and do more until it's all cleared up before moving on. And this is a really critical point, because every one of these things that you hold on at resistance to, and we've had a lot of discussion about resistance, and resistance is the very action in thought that does prevent the absolute flow of abundance of all things into our lives. And so I'll make the point again that these aren't simply paragraphs that are there for us to read, intellectually go, oh yeah, okay, I get that. You don't get it. You've got to act it. You've got to do it. You've got to apply it. And I know I could probably spend the better part of an entire week going through personality traits that I need to separate myself from in order to allow the continued flow. And it's very interesting because, we have an awareness, an aha moment, we as is something, and you immediately go into pride about, well, boy, how smart I am, and how far along the path I've come. And look, I'm just another notch up this spiritual enlightenment chart. So, maybe I'll just hang out here now for the rest of my life. I mean, how smart do I really need to be? Oh God, some of my personality traits are showing, I think. I don't know. It's just a wild thought. Attachment and aversion to pride. Oh, isn't this interesting that this is the next section? No pride here. In this part, we're going to continue looking at pride and our resistance to it. And we're going to look at resistance primarily to letting go of it, I would suspect. So let's do an attachment and aversion session with pride. Oh, look at the time. I think I'll stop here. Oh, does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, or safety and security? Whichever one it brings up, could you let it go? And what disadvantage is it for you to be in pride? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, or safety? And whichever want it stirs up, could you let it go? Could you even let go of wanting to be separate? And what's another advantage of you being in pride? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, or safety, or wanting to be separate? And whichever want it brings up, could you just let it go? And what's another disadvantage of you being in pride or having pride? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, safety, or separation? And whichever want it is, could you just let it go? And what's another advantage to being in pride? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, safety, or separation? And whatever want it is, could you just let it go? And what's a disadvantage of being in pride or having pride? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, safety, or separation? Whichever one it is, can you let it go? Can you just let it go? Oh, now let's ask the squeezing the lemon question with regard to our pride. Imagine never, ever, ever being able to have pride again. If that brings up an unwanted energy in your stomach or chest, a rejection, a clutching or resistance, could you just let it go? And more, and even more. Imagine never, ever, ever being able to have pride again. You've lost that ability. Notice if it brings up an unwanted energy in your stomach or chest area, a resistance, a clutching. Allow it to come up and allow it to pass through, and more, and even more. And could you just let go of your entire attachment to pride? Any resistance to saying yes? Just allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through. Remember, we're moving up towards imperturbability, courageousness, acceptance, and peace. Each time we let go, we're moving up. And pride is a big stuck place, a resistance place. Can you let go of your entire attachment to pride Could you just allow that energy to pass through? Any resistance to saying yes, just let it go, and more, and even more. And Burl, I loved your smile as we were going through there. So any thoughts you'd like to share with the rest of us?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just smiling for the simplicity of this, and to catch myself resisting, and here I am again playing this little, human role or whatever, and to don't resist it. The human role is the fun, I think, in some way. I mean, I'm laughing about that, like, gosh, here we are again. But one thing that I notice also is like we have added one quality here, from wanting control that I catch myself. For example, when I was sensing here about the pride, the squeezy question, whatever, to me, wanting security, like pride gives me a sense of security, and comes from wanting security. Okay, let it go, open the window, whatever. But we added one more quality from security, from wanting approval, wanting control, wanting security, or wanting separation. And I love that we add that, because all this chapter really goes from, the deep understanding that is our path. Separation is not something to reject, it's something to liberate, to include and let it go, And that tendency that we have thousands of years or whatever from the old consciousness to separate from everything that is uncomfortable, So I love to catch that with this smile, with the joy of seeing, gosh, this can be released. So like a deeper level I'm touching, and I just appreciate that. So thank you for all of you to be here and to support this journey. I love it. Thanks.
What was going through my mind as I was reading this was, if I let go of pride, how would I ever be able to judge myself as doing better? And if I let go of self-judging, how am I ever going to get to self-approval? How am I ever going to get self-security? How am I ever going to get self-control? So it was a very intimate experience for me to understand how all of these things are not necessarily evolving around external approval, control, or security, but very intimately reflective of my own internal turmoil. And our emotion, it's becoming very clear that this emotional scale that we have is designed really to keep us feeling self-acceptance, self-security, self-control, self-judgment, as a way of actually maintaining our position in this time, space, physical continuum. I'm done now.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. Well, I think it's amazing that we can really explore inside each of us, what that means for each of us. But to me, the gift, what you were saying right now, is like who needs, to control or to improve or to, to be better. And I mean, the aspect of us that needs that, is the human one. Because our true nature, is expansive by nature. It's not by comparison, or it's not expansive because I must or I have or I should, be better, whatever. It's inevitable, the expansion of the divine, for the way I sense it, every time that I can release something or whatever, like more of that flow, of peace and well-being and feeling good, right? Capital letter, let's say. So I really see that, this work threaten, our ego personality self, that does want to control and be the one, that is doing the good job. Well, there is no one doing any good job here. There is just the good job is happening through us. in some way, you know. So I will say that's the sense that I get more and more, you know. So it's nothing personal. It's so funny. And even though I know that and I experience that often, I do catch myself, you know, like wanting personally, you know, like really separated individuality, wanting this different, instead of, you know, is to open the window, let that go, you know, because at the end, it's wanting security, you know, on some level. That personality wants security, but I'm not just the personality, you know. So I love that we can explore and discover that, because it's a very deep work. I mean, really, really, liberation is huge, you know. It's to stop the wheel of suffering here and going around, you know, with this unconscious until now way of, you know. So I wanted to say that I am very happy to go deeper, you know. So thank you.
I think the last two comments here with Dr. Fran and Monica is so pertinent that you know, the bottom line is the mind, the ego mind, the human mind doesn't care what it thinks about. As long as it has the main stage, camouflage itself as, you know, this holy person or this terrible person, or we got to get rid of this. No, we are the saints in action here. It doesn't matter how it does it at the main stage. It feels like it is alive, like it has, and yet the only ultimate liberation is to get it off the main stage and know that there is no stage. There is just beingness, and all these things about rights or wrongs to get rid of, or attachment to, aversion to, all this is just games, ego mind. So my Tibetan background and my belief is, you know, our true meditation is to be in the now and get out of the positioning of the mind in any point of view, and just move out of that. And so, how are you? I'm bad. I'm good. It's amazing. It's just amazing. What is amazing? I don't know. It's just amazing. You know? So when we can be in that space, then we don't have time. I'm having an experience, and if I have time to think, experience, I don't like it or I like it, or it's painful or it's not painful. But if I don't have that time and I can only stay in the now, whatever the experience is, which has been shown to me, enlightened beings. I've seen them in supposedly incredible pain, but they don't have the pain because they don't identify with the concept. They just have the experience. That's it for me.
Okay, woohoo! Well, I think we are arriving to the end of our session here, our mastermind together. For sure, I love what you said. I have difficulty to write an attentive all here, but I mean, you know, like you will listen again to the video. I think me too, because to me, you can stop it, you know, and then really check in, you know, what is this resistance? Do I have it or not? But I mean, the points that I'm getting today is like, don't resist even the resistance, you know, or the jealousy or whatever it is, or even I'm going to work a lot, you know, in this, you know, maybe I'm resisting to have this wonderful life, you know, check it. I didn't have the time to check it deeper here, you know, but it's so purging, you know. I see that Lawrence has the ability, or this release technique, you know, has the ability to talk the topics that are very, very conditioning us as human beings, you know, and we can purge them, we can, you know, bring light to them. So I just love this work. And I don't know if you have something else to say, Doc Fran, before we close, but I would love to see. Open the microphone here or not.
I'm really talked out for today. I'm quite introspective right now. So perhaps I'll have some awareness that I can share at the startup of the next session. I do have a sensation of needing to chew on some of this stuff today.
Me too. Great, good, Doc Fran. That make us grow. You know, it's not just reading intellectually. It's such, you know, this has to be felt. This has to be experienced. So here we go. We have a full week in front of us. And, you know, maybe you take a little 15 minutes every day or 1 hour one day. I don't know how you organize your week, you know, but to ponder, to really experience, you know, what comes up when we ask these questions. You know, are you know, are better than someone else? Yes. Oh my gosh, you know, are you jealous? Oh, okay. Can I welcome that and open the window? That's it. You know, this work is really about releasing. I love the simplicity of it. I wish everyone to have a wonderful release week, let's say. And again, if someone, you know, sees the growth that you can have here or something like that, you want to be on the panel, remember to email Arne, ARNE, at unlimitednetwork.com. So we can send you a special link for you to be here on the panel. And also remember that we have all these recordings, you know, on under unlimitednetwork.com/mastermind. So you can see it during the week, absolutely. And hope to see you next Saturday again, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And like you said, Doc Fran, to bring our own realizations that I think is, as soon as we vibrate, you know, as soon as we something, not that I know intellectually, but as soon as I get it energetically talking, I become that, you know, open window or letting go of release, we inspire, you know, the entire planet. That's what I believe, you know. So I love that we can do our inner work, you know. That's our responsibility. That's all, you know. So have a wonderful week, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I love you, and see you next Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your insights.
Mwah.